Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Esoteric Survivalist. Today, we're going to talk about the five sub-disciplines that accompany the five disciplines or yamas of Raja Yoga, which is essentially the application of the eight-limbed yoga of the aphorisms of the sage Patanjali. This is a very popular system among practitioners, very influential. The book is the aphorisms are about 2,000 years old, give or take, and they have influenced almost every yoga system out there. And at the same time, they are not the only version of yoga, but they do hold a certain standard and a certain structure that can be used and applied even today, of course, even outside of the confines of the tradition. But we found that, or I found at least, that we can approach these aphorisms and this structure in a way that can ease us into what we might call meditation proper. So we want to apply this for conditions of esoteric survivalism, which means living in the modern world where the magical and the spiritual is really less apparent than maybe it used to be when the world was more natural. At the same time, humans are striving to reach a deeper potentiality due to much information that has come out about esoteric processes and possibilities, due to the relaxation of the inhibitions against it from religions for the most part. Although ridicule still exists, it is also more lax than it used to be. The problem now isn't conveying the esoteric truth so much as preventing misunderstandings of those truths. So we don't fall into dogmatism, so we don't go around false wild goose chases, so we don't waste our time. And more importantly, so we don't engage in practices where we are not as informed as we could be, because maybe the information doesn't exist, or maybe it's disinformation. Whatever the case may be, such practices can be harmful if you don't do them right, if you are not informed. It's almost like check with your yogi or check with your doctor before you do this, because we all have different needs and because we all have different constitutions. However, esoteric survivalism means to address common themes or common, shall we say, issues that we may have that range from the psychological to the transcendent. So it's not transcendental psychology per se. It just has that commonality with Maslow's pyramid, which is mostly involving the psychological, and then it has the tippy top for the transcendent. In this case, the four tiers I discussed in previous discussions, previous talks, the four tiers are essentially one little tip for the mundane psychological stuff, and the rest of it is esoteric. So when we deal with the second level, for example, we are dealing with relationships, from friendly to intimate to casual to anything to formal, all of these to the relationships with the environment. So we can address these things from the point of view of our psychology, but then we would be level one, if I state these levels. But if we do address relationships at the depth that covers their true essence, shall we say, we cannot help but go into esoteric territory. Psychology would just say, oh, that's in the subconscious. Well, we're looking into the subconscious, or maybe the subconscious that is only subconscious under normal circumstances, shall we say. Under extra normal circumstances or specialized circumstances, the subconscious opens up. And sometimes it opens up so greatly, it leads to the superconscious. That's very rare, however. However, we have processes here through the structuring of the art of harnessing, known as yoga, that can inch us toward applicability, shall we say, in a survivalist zone. In some ways, esoteric survivalism is easier than conventional cultivation because it's not as demanding, because it's highly specific, and because whoever's engaging in it should be extremely motivated to do it. because if you're in the wilderness and your survival's at stake physically, you're going to do anything necessary. You're going to eat stuff that you probably wouldn't normally eat. You're going to put up with conditions where you have no choice but to put up with them. Esoteric survivalism is not as strict because it doesn't involve the physical outside of indirect effects, secondary effects, you might say. It involves the spiritual, the consciousness, the mind, the feelings, everything subjective. Even perception that you might think is objective, and maybe is objective in terms of conventional thinking. So the first thing we do, and forgive the constant review repetition, it's for the sake of new viewers, but it's also for the sake of establishing this material in a way that is so familiar that it's normal. And for that reason, and for that to happen, because this isn't something you encounter in your life all the time and directly, saying it in different ways briefly will help. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. But as it stands, we begin with the psychological mind. And the psychological mind here, contrary to traditional yoga, as it would express the niyamas, these yamas or disciplines or moral principles, as such, I am explaining them as a sequence, beginning from reverse dogmatism due to resisting conjecture, so intuition can actually grasp what's real. And speaking of grasping, we're led to a sequence that where we appreciate being genuine and accommodate our ethics, our principles, and everything accordingly. We appreciate the value of boundaries and do the same thing accordingly. And that leads us into brahmacharya, which is essentially proper behavior. It is pure behavior. It is acting from a moral and ethical stance, because if you're unbiased, if you're nonviolent, if you're respecting boundaries and don't steal, if you don't lie and are truthful to people, then, well, you might as well be brahmacharya. You're essentially a good person, at least socially speaking. So this is where you actually say, okay, this is going to be my vehicle of expression, because it's not going to repress me. I'm choosing it deliberately for a reason, in order to be able to navigate difficult territory, psychologically speaking. So we can dispense with the term spiritual. Let's just go to psychology. Only psychology pertains to the observable mind and the five senses and how we react to them and our behavior. No, this has to do with the sphere of relationships as an independent entity from our own individuality, and the sphere of transcendence as an independent entity in relationship to our own morality. And it covers a very important point. Not Abraham Maslow's pyramid doesn't really cover it, but Carl Jung does address it. His whole psychology is based on it, but it's still psychology. We're talking about the human collective. The realm of archetypes simply reflects the true field of consciousness of the human collective. Beyond that, we have other collectives, but it becomes the field of life of the planet, and then the intelligence of the planet, and from there we move into astronomical cosmic consciousness, and from there we move into transcendental cosmic consciousness, where the subquantum, everything, the astronomical, the cosmic, all of it is distilled into the essence of beingness, and it covers everything. In order to be able to navigate that in a way that doesn't tax you, in a way where you're not out to become some sage or tackle impossible heroic deeds on the spiritual level or heal the world, you're simply aiming to stand up like a proud human being, pride in the good sense, like a human being on your space of the planet, relating to the world at large in a way that does not cause your life to come off as something sterile. No matter how it appears, you can be very wealthy, you can be allegedly emotionally happy, everything may appear very well. There may just be a little nagging something that's bugging you. Or you can be down in the dumps in more ways than one. And this is a way to actually help yourself by first addressing the Abraham Maslow's pyramid in reverse. Because you can address self-actualization first and have the faith. That's what religious people do, actually, because they have the faith that their survival would be taken care of and all of the rest. They go through the motions to do it, but they're not concerned about it. Because remember, this is a pyramid of priorities in the self. It's not like a map of action per se. It translates into action, of course. But the pyramid of priorities is that if you address the spiritual first in a survivalist manner, you are addressing what you can do from where you are in a position of disadvantage, because an esoteric survivalist is not in a position of advantage, no more than a physical survivalist is. All they have is their wits and their knowledge. And through that, they can access resources that are already available, but they couldn't access before because they didn't know how. They wouldn't even recognize that it's a resource. So in a similar manner, esoteric survivalism, so let's just really get this through, means that you can access the paranormal, spiritual, essential, psychic resources of your environment, your society, your relationships at all levels, and of your psyche that you could access at any time. But this points to what exactly you need to address in order to put enough pieces together so you can stand up and then move accordingly from the top down or bottom up on Maslow's pyramid of priorities. You can act normal. You don't have to deal with this kind of stuff, but you do have a little pouch or little wallet of esoteric credit, so to speak, because you have certain bases covered. You need, it's like the Jordan Peterson clean your room thing that is popular now, that basically that if you don't make space for yourself, you're not going to be able to do anything. If your mind is in a clutter and your world is in a clutter, or vice versa, then you can't move beyond that. So to remove the internal clutter, you reach a point of esoteric survivalism where you not only remove the clutter, but you open the gates to meaning. And you are free to search for meaning without compromising the rest of your life. This isn't so much a matter of not having time or having time. Eventually you can manifest having time. But even if you don't have time, the time that you do have invested in so many other things can also include this. Esoteric survivalism, the tool shed of esoteric survivalism is streamlined. So that's why it's the simple default version, but its resolution is clear when conveyed properly. So that being said, let us move into the 5 subdivisions or sub-disciplines or internalized disciplines, because the 5 principles essentially led you to Brahmacharya, and beyond that, well, I'm okay socially. People don't really bother me because I'm doing the right thing, and I'm also insightful enough to be able to perceive if anybody's not on the level. However, these abilities are actually to be honed. So once you are able to do that, you can trust life. You know that things are going, even if they're not going ideally. You are riding life, and life isn't riding you. You're essentially you may not feel in charge or that much, but you are able to behave in a way that's sustainable, or the most sustainable way. And it's absolutely normal, so it doesn't threaten anybody. And if you need to stand up for yourself, you will do it first on the inside so you don't have to falter on the outside. So you're focusing now where your sustainability originates, and that sustainability originates from within. So once you attain this trust, so you can release your grasp on life, which does not mean that you let everybody have all your possessions and you live out in the wilderness naked. It means that you essentially don't need to grasp. You can still hold, or things can still be with you. I've said about as much in another video. For now, I want to say that this trust in life, this relaxation, shall we say, it's a kind of psychic relaxation, a psychological relaxation, where you can go, okay, at least I can breathe now. So in that sense, you're going to look, okay, but what's really bothering me here? And the science and art of harnessing will tell you, well, the next step is to deal with your personal hygiene. This is to clean the room again, but this time don't just order it up. This time actually scrub the dirt off the floors, vacuum it and all of that kind of stuff. Get it clean. Not sterile, but clean. So clean your body, clean your mind, clean them both. And when you do clean them, you need to realize what cleaning means. One version of it is psychic self-defense. Another version of it comes naturally because if you like to take baths or showers, you have good physical hygiene, shall we say. Mental hygiene is not that far off of it. People would take ritual baths before doing magic or meditation because the mind associates that kind of physical cleanliness, the removal of dirt or grime or fat. It associates it with what goes on in the psyche, and you don't need much. All you need is a little bit of mindfulness while you're cleaning physically to associate it with, now I'm removing all the crap from inside too. The yamas will lead you to a point of trust in life. Brahmacharya, before that trust, cultivates vitality. So you find interest in life by following the path or the conduct of Brahma. Propriety is done for a reason, to make people comfortable, and making people comfortable is in everybody's interest. And if they're psychopaths and go against you, then that gives you ever more resourcefulness to deal with them because you're in the right. So when somebody goes, it's all relative, you may want to ask yourself if they want to dismantle your empowerment. And you don't need to confront anybody about anything. You just need to stand on your own ground. So once you do that, you have a certain vitality, a certain productivity, shall we say. You might even call it psychic virility. And this vitality, leading to non-grasping, leading to a trust in life, as a byproduct of having you understand what your life's about, why events occur, what your karma is, how everything came about in a way. I mean, this whole past life thing, just consider it a dramatization of your own awareness of what's going on subconsciously. So you string it all up into a causal story, a narrative, and go, well, I must have been this guy in the past life if I'm going through this now. Only the insight is far more, you might say, precise, encompassing at the same time, and it's interconnected and makes sense. So once you have that, you're actually like on the threshold of level 2 esoteric application. You're on the threshold of wisdom because you're beginning to understand yourself, and you look back at the yamas and you go, look, these aren't just morality things. They're a whole process of relaxing the mind so I don't let my preconceptions take over, and leading up to a certain trust in life that allows me to objectively, with as much as possible from the internal realm, objectively see what the heck is going on with me in terms of the motivational forces. You get to map yourself out in a certain sense. Maybe not immediately, but it does precipitate. And that leads to not just personal hygiene, it leads to the awareness of the necessity for personal psychic hygiene. And physical hygiene is just a byproduct. Because here you realize that, look, there's infectious thoughts, there's infectious energies, there's infectious a lot of things, and be it metaphysical or psychological, or just the fact that information itself can be infective in a way, virulent, toxic, nourishing, it can be many things. You don't get caught up in assumptions of, is this real or not? No, you're experiencing it, and it's real enough because you have to deal with it if you're experiencing it. You can't afford to question the validity of your experience if it's intense enough to cause you either comfort or discomfort. It's just that even if the experience was artificial, that's still a cause. So it's just not coming from one direction, it's coming from another. Once you deal with personal hygiene, you're able to take another sigh of relief and feel content in the moment. it's not ecstatic. Content means that you're not suffering. You're looking back and you're saying, okay, even though this is not the moment I really want, I can actually feel unhindered by the moment itself. I'm not burdened by its premises. It's what all the psychologists say. Be happy, don't worry, this, that. Yeah, but you need a certain, you need to earn it, shall we say. You need cause and effect for this to work. You need to have it structured. It doesn't have to be a discipline, but you need to, in some way, be the instigator or the cultivator of it. Even if it's spontaneous, something's going on in you, and consciousness needs to be present to a certain degree. It's not just, it's almost like asking life to live for you and you just forget about it, so you don't have to worry about anything and just be an observer of your own existence, but you're not participating. You have no initiative. Esoteric survivalism triggers our desire for initiative because it's a joy to be able to fulfill yourself and be fulfilled in more ways than just the individualistic, selfish, so to speak, manner. And as you move into this zone of contentment, then you realize that, okay, that's not enough. I need to move. I need something more. I need to dive in, whatever it is. So the niyamas then give you 3 practices that the author calls kriyaa-yoga, which means the yoga of process, or the harness of the process, whatever binds everything together. It is also process harnessing. It's action harnessing. It's acting. It's yoga in action, and also the yoga of action. Now, it all has to do with energies and movements, but what this thing is saying is that, well, you bind these 3 activities together, and you basically started doing yoga in a very dynamic manner. And these are the intensity of fiery force, the fiery force of consciousness, not passive, but a fiery, dynamic, intense passion that you cultivate. And you know that once you focus anywhere on your body, for example, your attention is like that, then you start feeling energy, you start feeling tingles, it's a stimulus. Aside from that, however, this passion is necessary to move through the inertia that keeps us where we are, or else we'd be just blossoming spontaneously, and we're not. In fact, we're to the point where this practitioner is making videos of the necessity of actively taking some kind of initiative that needs to be basic and foundational, non-denominational, non-dogmatic, non-religious, but adaptable to religious, etc., etc. And even philosophically speaking, no, this is pragmatism here. It's esoteric pragmatism because there are not enough information, at least to satisfy other people. But there is enough experience, though. And these aphorisms are 2,000 years old, and I found that they very greatly adapt to these premises of esoteric survivalism, as long as they are interpreted accordingly. So these 3 kriyaa-yoga, these 3 practices of harnessing that constitute the very dynamic of yoga, where any kind of activity boils down to these principles. So we're starting from here. These are not official limbs or subdivisions. They are sub-subdivisions. Essentially, the sutras, they're not restricted to just a meditation session, of course. So they repeat things at different levels. And whatever you're going to do with meditation, concentration, etc., you're going to do here first in a way that's far more basic. And people who learn to meditate or become mindful, they usually don't address this. It's almost like diving directly into the deep end and then just keep doing it until you get it. So I'm going to emphasize something different. I do not see these niyamas emphasized enough, even in yoga teachings. Yeah, if you're specifically analyzing the sutras or doing lectures, of course. And what else can they do? But practitioners and people who market the stuff, it's like, dude, you gotta teach the foundation before you can build a house. Otherwise, the walls are going to keep toppling down. It's going to be a house of cards. I'm doing more than one video or lecture on these things because it needs to be approached rather slowly. So I'm going to say more about the transition between non-grasping, or even from brahmacharya, because the whole yama thing is essentially condensed. That's the true meaning of brahmacharya. It's being a moral person for reasons that it's best because it vitalizes you. You gain vitality. You're justified. You're not a false justified. You're not a Karen or whatever, male or female versions. You're not somebody who's trying to gain power over others by using principles of behavior and guilt tripping them. You're actually somebody who knows that if I do it right and I do it honestly and I'm not repressing myself and I actually am convinced that it is a healthy thing, then it's not going to hurt me. On the contrary, it's going to energize me. Fasting might seem like counterintuitive. It might seem like, no, I'm starving myself. Oh, that's bad. Oh, you're going to, malnourishment. No, it can cleanse you. However, not everybody is well suited for it. So it can cleanse most people, but other people might be harmed. Know thyself is one of the most important sayings in all of philosophy. And just as ethics is based on the golden rule. There may be some exceptions, because if you're a masochist, trying to do unto others as you would do unto yourself might not work. But the golden rule works most of the time, enough that it's pragmatically effective. So this is esoteric survivalism. You don't care about the dirty details sometimes. You know that the golden rule works, and it works in most cases. You know that honesty is healthy, provided that it's true sincerity and that you don't disregard your own well-being for it. You also know that authenticity means being honest with yourself. If you don't like something, there's a reason for it. You need to change it. The problem is you shouldn't change it by brute force. And that's because you might think you have to change it by brute force. So round and round she goes. If you don't become nonviolent by forcing yourself away from violence, you become nonviolent by understanding the situations better, because everything has an out. Even if somebody is out to get you violently, we're talking of a metaphysical zone here, which means that you can predict if that will happen. You can have your intuition so honed that you know that, oh, if I go there, it's not going to be good. If I go there, it's going to be much better. So we're already delving into level 2. There's no clear-cut boundaries. There's a transition. And if you are mindful at level 1, the foundation, then you can begin opening up to level 2, which is relationships, and that includes energetic exchange as well as psychological exchange, as well as exchange of the 5 sensory means of conveying information and perception, etc., etc. It can be cognitive, it can be intuitive, it can be whatever it needs to be, but it will be real. Reality is what is genuine. And the only thing that determines that is you from the inside, which means you need to realize what is genuine of yourself and what that means. This will put you in a position to get in shape and deal with the wolves of the world. I don't even know what I'm going to call this video. It covers so much territory, but I trust something will come. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. Check out my Substack if you like. And hey, don't shy away from the like button if you do appreciate this stuff. I never ask it, but I guess it's protocol. So without any further ado, Megas out.